Sziasztok! Ez egy rendkívüli alkalom, hogy ilyen formában jelentkezünk. Ebben az adásban Tom Szakival beszélgetünk, aki a legnagyobb multicégeket tereli zöldebb útra az újratöltető csomagolásaival. Tom ugyanis a TerraCycle alapítója, az újrahasznosítás egyik úttörője az egész világon. Nagyon speciális területeken is elérhetővé tudta tenni az újrahasznosítási gondolatát és a Loop nevű megoldását. Ezért is szeretnénk őt bemutatni számotokra. A beszélgetésben a Mindmade Inspiration tagjai részéről Nemes Gábor, fenntarthatósági témafelelős, Kiss Klaudia, fenntarthatósági és ifjúsági mentor, valamint Pintér Gábor, a közösség alapítója vesznek részt. Az interjút angol nyelven fogjátok hallani, de magyar felirattal segítünk a megértésben. Ez egy nagyon izgalmas beszélgetésnek ígérkezik.
Hi Tom.
Hello, how are you?
Hello.
Very nice to see you. Let me introduce myself. My name is Gábor Pintér. I'm the Mindmade Inspiration founder. And beside me is Gábor Nemes.
Two Gábors.
Two Gábors, yes. Who is the topic leader of sustainability. And he is running the topics of green HR and other related segments. We are two in the studio as well, but we have Claudia Kiss as a third party in this interview. She is on an endurance challenge, so let me also switch to her and allowing to take the first questions to you.
Hi Tom, my name is Claudia Kiss and I'm also a sustainability mentor at Mindmade Inspiration. I cannot be there personally now because we are on an expedition. We are paddling up on River Danube. We took the challenge to paddle upstream, and this project is also to raise awareness on environment protection. But with this video, I have the chance to ask you. I would be very curious on TerraCycle's origins, business results, and also I'm very curious on your future plans.
Well, thank you for the question, and good luck as you paddle upriver. It sounds like a very exciting challenge. You know, for me, the origin of TerraCycle has a lot of context with being born in Budapest. So I was born in Budapest in 1982. We left my parents in 1986 and then landed in Canada when I was 7. And then I went to university in New Jersey, which is where I'm speaking to you from. And why I mention this journey is I went from effectively back in the 80s socialism to capitalism, and I fell in love with entrepreneurship, the idea of the American dream, if you will. Now, one of the biggest turning points for me was in my first class at Princeton was economics, and the professor gets up on stage and asks, what is the purpose of business? Why does business exist? And the answer she was looking for was to maximize profit to shareholders. And that felt very uninspired to me. You know, if you think about how many people interact with a business, consumers, employees, vendors, you know, all these different people who interact, very few, very, very few care about profit to shareholders. And so I wanted to try to make a business that made the world better somehow. Environmentally or through society, and then did so at a profit, because profit is important, but it's an indicator of health. You know, if you're profitable, you're going to grow and flourish and be healthy. And if you're not profitable, well, you'll go bankrupt and at some point disappear. And so I wanted to really use profit as a different focus than the primary reason of being. And to me, garbage was the idea that I became very fascinated by, because we live in a very materialistic world, yet everything we possess will one day be property of a garbage company. Everything. In fact, 99% of what we buy will be property of a garbage company within the first year of purchase. So for how big a concept that is, it's an industry that will own everything. It's incredibly uninspired, the solutions. I mean, 99% of our garbage, we either put it in a pile or burn it. Only 1% is recycled. It's in fact the least innovative industry per dollar of revenue. And so we entered now 19 years ago this space to create a innovation company on garbage. And since then, you asked about the business results. We have seen straight growth. Every year we've grown. In fact, during COVID, we grew 10%. We added 100 new jobs. And this year will be even faster. And we try to approach waste in a way normal garbage companies don't, try to recycle things that are not traditionally recycled, like cigarette butts or dirty diapers. Use waste to make new products like ocean plastic, and even do big experiments in reusables, sort of trying to be like the Google of garbage. Now, our business results have grown tremendously, but the problem is massive. So there's still a very long way to go.
I know that you have all of your life beside of sustainability and keen on this topic. Could you tell us something about your personal view on this and TerraCycle view on this shortly?
Yes, TerraCycle's view, the business view, is how do we make consumption more circular? So right now we many times buy objects, use them, and throw them away. We can call that a linear system. And our job at TerraCycle is to try to bend that line into a circle, first by making things recyclable, then making them from recycled material, and finally to compress the circle to make it even more efficient by moving from single use to reusables. Now that's what we focus our business on. But my personal view, I'm glad you asked the question personally, is that none of this is the answer. The problem right now is that, and it doesn't matter what environmental topic you look at, if you care about animals and the fact that we're living through a mass extinction, or climate change, or garbage, or any other environmental issue, they are all connected to one central thing that we cannot control as people easily, which is we buy too much stuff. Every time we buy something, it creates harm on the planet. More mining, more farming, more extraction. And we have to, as individuals, fundamentally reconsider our relationship with consumption. Because I don't think business is able to create truly intrinsic circularity or sustainability. That has to be individuals driving that, and to lower our appetite, because today's appetite, there's nothing we can do to save the planet.
So you have a nearly 20 years old company, and in North America. And my question would be, within your organization, how do you reflect with corporate social responsibility? Do you have anything special within your organization?
Absolutely. It's a very good question. And we try to be a force for CSR in everything we possibly do. So our primary business, of course, is a CSR activity. The entire business is a CSR activity that brands and retailers and cities and facilities implement. So we are, in our core, CSR. But we also are a company. And so I believe that anything we can do to create environmental benefit or social benefit, we should do. So some examples, anywhere we own our buildings, we put solar panels on, and we have now a lot of buildings around the world where we do this. But even more importantly, that's an environmental example, we also try to locate our facilities, especially our headquarters, in the middle of the most challenging cities. So our headquarters are in Trenton, New Jersey. Now, Trenton may not mean much to many of the audiences, but it's the third most dangerous city in North America. It is right in the middle of a very, very tough inner city. And we do that so that our presence can bring about social change. We try to interact with the community as absolutely much as possible. And we do everything we can to achieve that. Even our recycling programs many times raise money for schools and charities as an incentive for the collectors who collect garbage for us. And so far, we have donated over $45 million to schools and charities around the world. My fundamental belief is that business can be a force for positive social and environmental change, and can do so while being profitable and growing. And that's, I think, the entire idea of what TerraCycle tries to do and the social business movement tries to do.
It's very, very important what you are saying. And in MindMate Inspirations, we also have a new agenda regarding CSR 2.0. And as we call it, is the future conscious thinking. And basically, it is about to interlocking employee and business goals, and using the SDGs as a framework during this discussion. How do you solve this in your life, in your company? How the employees are engaged to sustainability and your goals?
So it's very interesting because I think usually it comes where team members come in and then you engage on sustainability. That's more traditional. In our world, we're now at about 450 employees, to give you a sense of our scale. And we're more like a small, medium-sized company. And our employees come very much from a sustainability point of view. You know, our team members come in seeking sustainability, and then we have to teach them business. It's sort of the exact opposite. So a good example is, you know, our average employee, our most common employee is probably 27, female, and this is her first sort of serious business job. And what we really try to educate someone who's very focused on sustainability about business is the way to scale sustainability in an organization is to really help the organization you're trying to convince understand why sustainability is good for business. Not why it's the right thing to do, that's easy, but why it's going to help them drive traditional functions. Like if you're a retailer, how will a recycling program help drive more people into your store? If you're a brand, how will a reuse platform create brand preference? Things that are very traditional, because I think companies want to do the right thing, but they also need to meet their business goals. And I think that is the key challenge for sustainability, is not to argue why it's the right thing, but to argue why it's good for business. And the more you can do that, the faster ideas and concepts will scale within an organization and around the world.
HR plays a very critical play on this inside the companies. And we also have a green HR approach to have this influence to the colleagues. And also the young generation is very important for us as well. So if you don't mind, let me switch back to Claudia for her second question.
How do you see young generations? Do you think they would use Loop in the future?
Gosh, thank you for asking. So I hope so. Loop is a new platform that TerraCycle launched just 2.5 years ago at Davos at the World Economic Forum around reuse. It's a platform for reuse, and it's today live in the UK, France, Canada, and the US. And in fact, in a few months, we launch in Japan, and then end of this year, launch in Australia. And then, of course, next year, more countries as well. Hopefully one day, Hungary as well.
Right.
Now, what we have seen in sustainability, to the question that you asked, is that the people who care the most are young people, boys and girls, then women, and the worst demographic are us, like myself and the two Gabors. We are the worst. Men over, who are not kids anymore, are the biggest problem for the environment. I think it's in nature, who knows, but I'm very optimistic about the future. Kids, have grown up with environment being a major concern since they were born. Anyone who's 20 or younger, that's been the big questions in their lives. It hasn't been big wars. It hasn't been, big, economic events. It's been primarily environment. So I am very optimistic about young people, and I hope they will use services, like Loop and so on. And we're already seeing that in the data, but what is interesting about the data in Loop as well, now again, across those 4 countries in Europe and North America, is people are attracted to Loop or reusable packaging for 3 reasons. One is sustainability, which is the reason we created it. But another is because Loop gives you higher quality packages. So the products look better in your home. That's a very selfish reason. And the third is because they perceive that packaging product in glass or metal is also healthier, which is also a very personal reason. This is interesting because if you take the organic food movement, the idea of organic food was invented to support better farming practices so that insects and animals could live in farms versus what it's like in farms that use conventional pesticides. But if you ask people, why do they buy organic food? It's one reason: personal health. Isn't it interesting how selfish our decision-making is? And so, again, I think this is a very important lesson in sustainability, is we are very uninspired as individuals. We act for selfish reasons. So it's very important for the social business movement to understand that and to play into that. So if someone is going to go buy Loop because it's more beautiful packaging and they think the content is healthier for them, great. I wish they bought it for sustainability, but it doesn't matter why you do something. What matters is that you do something.
It's like a piece of art. You have very different approaches. You like it for different reasons why maybe we like. Anyway, you mentioned Hungary. And my question would be, end of this year, after the Glasgow United Nations meeting, we will have in Budapest, Planet Budapest 2021. This is an expo and environmental sustainability summit of Central Eastern Europe, mostly. Do you have any plan, maybe at Hung Expo, to show up and have an exhibition? We have a couple of months yet, so hopefully the situation will be better, and you would be most welcome in Hungary for that occasion.
Well, the answer is absolutely. I've been invited and plan on being there, so I'm very excited. And it's wonderful to see such an important topic being discussed in Hungary, both from a Central European but a global point of view. I think it's an incredibly exciting thing to see Hungary develop. And for me, Hungary is a very deep passion. We have our third biggest office in the world is in Budapest. And I am very passionate not just to put jobs into Hungary, but also to bring our services one day to Hungary as well. So we hope in the future to be launching Loop. And we've made a wonderful partnership with a local organization called Hybrid Art, who is helping us bring our recycling systems to Hungary as well. So there'll be more news on that coming later this year. But it's something that I'm deeply passionate about. So I look forward to being at the conference, but also doing even more locally in Hungary.
Yeah, good to hear that. And also it's very important if you come to Hungary, Central Europe, with the Visegrad countries, with the V4 countries, Poland and Prague, Bratislava, Budapest. So it's a big business opportunity. So Central Europe is a huge area actually in the future also for Loop.
What's also exciting to me about the region is people care quite a bit. The infrastructure may not be as advanced yet as Western Europe, but the people really are focused on these topics, and that's what creates innovation, is that the people care. And I think it's a very powerful point, as individuals, we vote for the future we want with what we buy, but we also vote for the future that we want with what we care about, because that's what politicians and industry will lean in to solve.
You also mentioned before profitability. Of course, it's very important in business to have the money. There were companies, they had no priority of money first, but do something good for the society. But then maybe during the 70s, another gentleman with Hungarian background, Milton Friedman, introduced the doctrine, his doctrine. Then he was a Nobel Prize winner, and that is now 50 years ago. And we think we should now switch from Milton Friedman's doctrine to another Hungarian gentleman living in the US, Michael Csikszentmihalyi, who has the flow. So flow would be our future when personally everybody can find his or her purpose in life, purpose in work. So what do you think? Because you were also in Davos, in Switzerland, World Economic Forum, where you have introduced the idea of eliminating the idea of waste. So would be this a good switch from Friedman doctrine to Flow by Michael Csikszentmihalyi?
Yes, so I think we have to have a fundamental question to the principles of basic economics. This idea of self and greed and the focus on profit, because it works in certain ways. It works for creating prosperity. It works for elevating people out of poverty. I mean, there are challenges, of course, but it does do that, but it is not in balance with the world. Right around the time that Friedman came out with that principle is also the time where we started using more resources every day than the world could replenish. It was in the 1970s that we started extracting more from the earth than the earth puts back every year. And we have been doing that more and more every year. And we're now seeing the consequences. We are in the middle of the biggest mass extinction of animals. We have lost 50% of our diversity in animals in the same period in time. We are living through extreme climate, getting worse. Texas here in the United States, frozen, creating major infrastructure problems, and then California on fire, just as United States examples. We're going to have, I believe the last 100 years, the years we were born into and our parents and their parents lived through were very much about human conflict, about two big world wars, about social justice, about rights for women or rights for visible minorities. They were very human questions. And I do understand why the Friedman point of view came through in that. But the century we're living through now, I think, will be marked with much larger environmental questions for us to grapple with. And that's what our children and their children will be mostly focused on. I think we're in this great transition. And the challenge is that traditional capitalism cannot solve the challenges we're focused on. Because if you think about traditional capitalism, there is no limit to growth. And in fact, when you stop growing, your value goes down. There is not value put on just sustaining a certain size. Every time I'm asked, how are we doing, as a business, I'm not asked, how are we doing? Where I'm asked, how much have you grown versus last year, right? There is this idea of growth with no end, but you can't have growth with no end on a finite system. And I think that to achieve happiness, right, we have to think about capitalism as not the only God we serve, but just as one function of a system, and to think about how do we attain fulfillment in outside just materialism, because materialism is an outcome of capitalism. You measure a country's materialism by looking at their GDP, which is sort of a score for how big a country is, but that's also equal to how much stuff it produces. And I think we have to have a shift here. Now, I think the shift will come no matter what. The question is, will it come painfully through environmental trauma, or will it come through choice? I think that's the key question we have to ask ourselves is, are we going to bring it about ourselves, or will we be forced into it? Because it will come no matter what.
So you just discussed the business perspective of sustainability, basically. And in our approaches in MindMate, we have 4 different layers to concentrate on. So individual level, services level, business level, and also the social responsibility levels, of course. And basically what we see that Loop is interconnecting these somehow. So that's why we are approaching you, and that's why it's very fine to discuss it. How do you think that companies can compensate future regarding this cost erosion and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, by the way, of the 4 things you mentioned, the most important is actually the one that thinks is the least important, which is the consumer choice. Because as consumers, what we buy, more will appear tomorrow of what we buy, and less will appear of what we don't buy. Individual consumers are the most powerful actor because the economy is really a mirror to individual choices and the desires we have. And the irony in that is we don't think we're powerful as individuals, but in fact, we hold all the power. Now, what's been a big learning for me in Loop is that Loop, again, is this platform for reuse. We try to convince consumer product companies to create reusable versions of their products. And, in 2 short years, we have now 120 major consumer product companies involved. Even P&G, Procter & Gamble, and Nestle have become investors in Loop. There's been great momentum. 15 major retailers like Carrefour, Tesco, and many others. But what has been the most interesting is that for a system like Loop to achieve transformation and scale, we need it to behave as much like disposability as possible. We need it to feel like it's no change. So isn't this a wonderful irony? The bigger the change, the more you have to disguise it as no change to achieve it. So what do I mean by that? Because that seems contradictory. So for consumer product companies, people who make things, what are they in the business of? They put liquid in a bottle and sell it. That's their basic, sort of, if I simplify it. So I need Loop to feel as much like that as possible. So we tell them everything is the same, but instead of putting it into a plastic bottle that can be used once, put it into a glass or metal bottle that can be used many times. Other than that, everything is the same. Retailers are in the business of taking those filled bottles, putting them on a shelf and selling them. I have to, again, show retailers how it's exactly the same, except the bottle is now reusable. And for consumers, the most important actor, they're used to a throwaway system, the convenience of buying something and disposing it. So I need to make it feel the same for them. And instead of disposing it into a garbage bin or a recycling bin, they dispose it into a reuse bin. And then, of course, from there, Loop takes it, cleans it, and passes it back to the manufacturers to refill it. Now, the big insight there is to create system change, we need the system to feel like there is the least amount of change occurring. And that is critically important if you are looking at social business, because many times social business tries to change too much at once. And when you do that, the more width you try to change, the slower the idea can scale. So you may get like a small community that has changed a lot, but it can't impact, a larger system. Now, because Loop has achieved this, in 2 years, we've launched it in 4 countries, 2 more countries by the end of this year. The momentum has come, but there is this we have to deeply honor the idea of making it feel as traditional as possible while creating that system change.
It's very interesting to hear that you have a business model regarding recycling and reusing, but also you are working on the refusing as well. So it's interesting.
Well, it's funny that you say the refusing. It's very hard from a business context for me to talk about refusing. Now, that is the most important thing to do, though, is to, when you talk about the hierarchy of waste, people many times talk about reuse, recycle, but the most important is this idea of reduce, or even better is to refuse, to not purchase. And it's very difficult to do because we gain happiness from purchasing. It's like an addiction. And it's hard to talk about that in the context of business. So if I have an opportunity in talking to you as just another human being, I absolutely think this message has to be shared. But you know how many times people say, like Noam Chomsky said, the revolution won't be televised, right? Well, it's the same thing. A change in capitalism can't be brought about by the organizations that are the capitalists because their business is growth, but it can be done by individuals.
Claudia also has a question regarding this, so let me switch to her back once again.
And what are TerraCycle's future actions? When can I try Loop in Hungary?
As you know, I have a deep passion for Hungary, and I really look forward to the answer being very soon. Right now in Europe, we are live in UK and France, UK with Tesco, France with Carrefour, and we will be next launching in Germany. After that, the goal will be to expand into other countries, both Western and Eastern European, and the first Eastern European market that we hope to launch in will be Hungary. If I had to estimate, I think it will be in 2023 likely that we would be able to bring Loop to the Hungarian market, but it's something that we are very, very excited about and are working very hard on.
Yes, as I mentioned, Poland, big country not far from us, so good Central European hub for you, Budapest, maybe in the future. Just coming back to, for 1 second, when you mentioned happiness coming from buying stuff, having stuff, I challenge this a little bit to remember Erich Fromm, who is also an American, and he had a book, To Have or To Be. So being was cherished during centuries in different cultures. Nowadays, we have a have it all to have culture in the last couple of decades at least, to have more and more. And now it's a little bit time to switch and paying attention, giving time to each other, that's the most valuable asset we have. So we really appreciate your presence and your attention to our dialogue here. So do you think in the next few years this will really happen, to have focus on more on being than to having? Maybe this pandemic also helped in a very bad and negative way, but somehow the positive side should be found on that too.
I absolutely hope so. Not just hope, but it's what we have to have to make sure this planet, can flourish. I think what you say is so important, because this idea of materialism is a fundamentally modern idea. It really emerged in the 1950s. It's perhaps only 70 years old as a result, and it is something that we have to. Materialism has a benefit, but only to a certain limit. And the excessive materialism is what we're suffering from right now. Now, the important context that comes into my mind as you ask the question is that shift a luxury? Is that shift something that someone who already has can attain? What is it like for someone where the majority of the world's population is living in abject poverty today? And they are, just making sure that they can put food on the table for their family, and that's the majority of people. They are just thriving for security that's brought about by attaining materialism. Now, that is, of course, very destructive for the planet, but there's this great, sort of balance. I think in Western countries, we will start seeing this, more and more. We're already seeing the idea of wealth change, right? From stuff to experience, as you've described. But I think what we need to think about is how do we help the emerging part of the world, Southeast Asia, Africa, Central America. How do we help them attain a standard of living that is comfortable, in a way that honors the question that you're asking? I think this will be a very, very big question, because, if you move 1 billion people out of living in abject poverty, and now as consumers, that is a huge humanitarian victory, but also very puts even more strain on the planet. And there's this great tension, I think. Many times in social business, we think about the planet, people, and profit, those three sectors. But people and planet are sometimes in tension with each other, as is profit. They don't always go together. And I think this will be also a very important question, as we think about what systems we want to have into the future, is how do we balance those three when they are at tension with each other? When they're all symbiotic with each other, it's easy. But I think, the more difficult question is when they are not symbiotic and they're in fundamental tension.
It's just like between people, when you have a conflict, then it's getting serious, and that harmony, to find harmony, maybe that would be.
There's one interesting thing as you say conflict. The one idea that came to my mind as you said that word is you can always take the volume down, right? You could take if there's an argument, you can take the decibels down. I think that's another lever we should think about, is that we may not be able to solve the tension, but we can modulate the volume.
It's really motivating to hear you discussing about your visions, as a true leaders in sustainability, and we know your success regarding this area. So we just wanted to recognize you, that you have followers in Hungary as a good mentor for us, of course, and we congratulate to you regarding this. Could you tell us something for your Hungarian followers, either in English or in Hungarian, if you would like?
Hát köszönöm nagyon szépen, amit mondtál, és bocsánat, hogy a magyar szókincsem nincs nem pontos. Már tipikusan majdnem 6-7-szer megyek ki Magyarországon évente, de most, mert mind a pandemic nem volt a lehetőség. De nézd, én nagyon sokat tanultam a magyar ötletből. Érted? Az, hogy mindent, amit látsz, lehet találni valami lehetőséget benne. És Ez egy nagyon fontos ötlet, mert ez segített nekem úgy nézni a szemétet, hogy ne legyen szemét, hogy mindenben van valami lehetőség, mindenből lehet valami mást csinálni, és nekem a Magyarország nagyon fontos, és az is fontos, hogy ezt a kilátást lehessen az egész világhoz hozni. És nagyon szeretném köszönni a magyar népet, hogy mindent, amit tanultam, és mindent, amit fogok tanulni, és együtt lehet elég ilyen nagy ötleteket összetenni, és ahogy mondta, ahogy jött a kérdés múltkor, hogy mindent lehessen Magyarországban is csinálni. De hogy legyen nagy ötletünk, és próbáljuk olyan ötleteket kihozni, ami nem csak hoz hazont, de hoz pozitív, hogy pozitívan tudunk nőni a világon, és mint nép. És nagyon köszönöm szépen.
Nagyszerű zárszó volt. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your visionary role. And keep you in this manner. Okay, yeah. Thank you, sir.
Köszönöm szépen.
See you. Thank you very much, Tom.
Thank you.
Köszönjük szépen Tom Szakinak a beszélgetést, reméljük, hogy ti is élveztétek az interjút, és hasznos információkat hallottatok. Amennyiben a témában pedig kérdés merül fel bennetek, azt írjátok meg nekünk az info@mindmade.hu e-mail címre. Iratkozzatok fel a Mindmade Inspiration YouTube csatornájára, mert hamarosan újra jelentkezünk. Köszönjük a figyelmeteket, sziasztok!